Okay. Going to call the Tuesday, September 1st, 2020 meeting of the Washoe County Planning Commission to order. Can we have a determination of a quorum?
Larry Chesney,
Present.
Francine Donchik,
Present.
Thomas Bruce, Sarah Sabilicek,
Present.
Kate Nelson,
Present.
Larry Payton,
Present.
Pat Phillips.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And Commissioner Sabilicek, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council Edwards, are you with us?
I am, sir.
Could you inform us on the ethics law announcement, please?
Yes. Commission members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission tonight, 1, you have received a gift or loan. 2, you have a pecuniary interest. 3, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship. Or 4, you provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered tonight. Then you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commission members are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you have had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you, Nate. Mr. Lloyd, could you tell us about the appeal procedure, please?
All right, most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission, you may, and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Planning Commission Chair and/or the Secretary of the Planning Commission, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Trevor. Before we move to public comment, I want to read an introductory statement. Any participants wishing to speak via Zoom shall sign in and identify themselves with their first and last names when they're called upon. If you're not a panelist and you wish to speak, please only click the raise your hand prompt symbol during public comment portion of the item you wish to speak on. All panelists on Zoom should mute their mics until they're ready to speak. If anyone is having difficulty hearing the audio through Zoom, it may be helpful to use earbuds. In order to be able to see the chamber presentations, please ensure you open an additional tab to stream Washoe County TV Live or YouTube. Please be aware YouTube has a delay of the actual chamber proceedings. That being said, I will move to public comment. General public comment. Any person is invited to speak on any item on or off the agenda during this period. Action may not be taken on any matter raised during this public comment period until the matter is specifically listed on the agenda as an action item. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Any written public comment? None? No. Seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings. Oh, excuse me, no.
Mr. Chairman,
We need action, a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sabilicek, a second by Mr. Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Okay. Possible action to approve August 4th, 2020 minutes.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Donchik. Second, Commissioner Chvilichek.
Have a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Doncheck, a second by Commissioner Civilicek. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to item 8, public hearings. Abandonment case number WABA 20-0003, Pahute abandonment for possible action, hearing and discussion to approve abandonment. Oh, I'm sorry, that's
It's Mr. Lloyd.
Trevor's. Go, Trevor.
All right, that's for possible.
I just figured I might as well do it all.
I was happy, that's fine. For possible action, hearing and discussion to approve an abandonment of Washoe County's interest in 1,197 square feet of public right-of-way at the end of Pahute Road, 175 feet west of Nevada State Route 28. If approved, the property will be abandoned to the abutting property owner at 425 Pahute Road. The request is to abandon is pursuant to NRS 278-480 and related provisions in Washoe County Development Code. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Julie Olander.
Okay, Judy, just a second. Are there any disclosures by any of the commissioners, either ethics or ex parte communications
None.
involving this case? Seeing none. Go ahead, Julie.
Good evening, this is Julie Olander with Planning and Building. I just want to confirm that my screen is screen sharing is working.
Yes.
Okay, let me just get rid of some of the stuff. Whoops. Gosh. Sorry, trying to get it to work right. All right, here we go. Oops. So this is abandonment for Pahute Road. And the applicant is requesting to abandon 31 feet of the public right-of-way at the end of the road. Pahute Road is between Washoe Road and State Route 28. The road is paved, but it's fairly narrow, and it's basically just a one-way road. One-lane road, excuse me. The abandonment is for approximately 1,000 and almost 1,200 square feet, and the parcel is zoned high-density suburban, as are the surrounding parcels. The setbacks for HDS are 20 feet in the front and rear and 5 feet on the sides. Here's a view of what they're proposing to abandon. The applicant originally asked to abandon, and you can sort of see where the house is underneath. But they originally asked to abandon the 31 feet and then also to meet the setback, which is 20 feet. However, this is on a cul-de-sac, and because of that narrow road, a lot of the neighborhood uses the cul-de-sac as a turnaround area. They come down Pahute Road, and then they turn around in this cul-de-sac. So after reviewing this with engineering, it was decided that they would only, the county was only comfortable with abandoning the portion where the house is residing on the property. On the right-of-way, excuse me. And so this is sort of showing how that's going to work. So it's just going to be about 2 feet past the house, where the house is sitting, and the rest of it is going to remain in the cul-de-sac. As I said, the road is narrow, but also the reason this house is built on the right-of-way, there's several houses up there on Pahute Road that are also not built on the right-of-way, but don't meet setbacks. So it's a challenging area up there in the sense of how a lot of the houses are non-conforming. Pahute Road is approximately 760 feet long, and like I said, it's one lane. And I meant to mention that the house was built in 1941. So at that time, and even up to the 70s, it's hard to tell what building permits were done on the property. And so we're not even sure if this is where the original house was, where it was located on this portion of the right-of-way, or if it was an addition possibly in the 60s or 70s. And as I said, it's a cul-de-sac at the end that is used by the neighborhood, and we just didn't want to give up any of the cul-de-sac that is available for the neighborhood to turn around on. So as I said, the house is just the area of the is the only portion of the right-of-way that is being considered to be abandoned. And so we did not see that this would deprive any of the abutting properties any issue, or it wouldn't really change the road at all, because the road is going to remain the same. It's just the line is going to be drawn basically 2 feet away from the house, and the cul-de-sac will remain functioning the way it is currently. Currently, as I said, the house is considered legal but non-conforming because it won't, if the abandonment is approved tonight, it still won't meet that 20-foot setback. And any new additions to the house, if it was over 10%, that wouldn't be permitted. They would have to make any additions. They would have to meet that 20-foot setback. And as I said, there are several other properties on Pahut Road that are non-conforming and don't meet current Washoe County requirements. 5 agencies reviewed this. Fire reviewed it. Lake Tahoe Fire reviewed it. The GID reviewed it. And they had no comments or really no conditions. The fire basically said that if engineering was good with the abandonment, they would be fine with it. So the only conditions that are in the conditions of approval are from planning and engineering. The abutting properties were noticed, and legal notice was posted in the Gazette. And I just want to make note that abandonments are not presented to the CABs. That's not a requirement. NRS allows the Planning Commission to vacate easements if the public will not be materially injured. And staff has concluded that the adjacency properties will not be negatively affected because in reality, they will not see any change. It's just a line on the map will change. And the surrounding properties will still have access to the cul-de-sac as they currently do. There are 3 findings that are detailed in the staff report, and staff was able to make the findings. And here's a possible motion. I'm available for questions, and also the applicant, I believe, is available and for questions too.
Thank you, Julie. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
All right.
Somebody want to set the timer? Okay, you have, as the applicant, you have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll be sharing my screen. Okay. And can you guys all see that?
No.
No. Uh-oh. It says I'm sharing my
There
screen.
you go.
Okay,
You gotta
perfect.
blow it up.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kina. I work for Gillenfart Architecture here in Crystal Bay, Nevada. I'll be presenting to you about 425 Pahut, as Julie already introduced the situation to you. So to talk about the existing conditions, first to go into Crystal Bay history a little bit. In the 1920s is when the land was starting to be sold off. Gambling started in around 1930s with the Ta Navajo Lodge. And by the 40s, people were starting to build little fishing cabins and small summer houses and stuff up on the hillside in Crystal Bay. But keep in mind that this is a really extremely steep area of the lake. And for those of you that have driven through the area before, it's that stretch of road between Incline Village and the casinos in Crystal Bay. It's a very steep neighborhood. And back in the 40s, people kind of just built the houses wherever they could, wherever the site would allow them to build it. That's the impression that we have. To go into this specific home's history, as Julie mentioned, it was built in 1941, and we have the Washoe County assessors that says it was built as a, 1-story with a daylight basement, which is what it currently is now. We have very, very limited access to any sort of public records. In fact, the only publicly available permit for this house at all is a tankless water heater switch in 2019. We do have TRPA records dating back to 1993 that show a survey of the site that shows the house in roughly the same position, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. One thing that we do know about this site, your guess is as good as ours about what exactly it looked like in the 40s, but one thing is that the lower floor of this house has extremely low ceilings, which we know is customary of older time houses as opposed to anything more modern. And that's why we feel that it may be similar to what is historic. And then also wanted to talk about the existing road conditions. As you can see in these photos, it feels more like a street that kind of just turns into a driveway. There's really no room for a turnaround, even though the Washoe County map does show the 25-foot radius turnaround. I mentioned in the write-up that the nearest property is about 60 feet away, and that's actually the nearest access to another property is 60 feet, but those are just stairs that access a house, which its primary access through its door and garage and stuff are on another street. So the closest house that is accessed by Pahut specifically is closer to 100 feet away. There are several other examples of these types of conditions in Crystal Bay. As Julie mentioned, several on Pahut specifically encroach into the variance setback. So we've had a variety of houses on the street that have applied for variances to be able to build into their setbacks, and some that have actually, they were already existing built into the setbacks, and then they just applied for variances to rebuild or expand, as you can imagine. And we know that the property lines they're kind of just drawn all over the place because this house was built before the subdivision of Crystal Bay was actually created in 1949. And then, as many of you probably know, the California-Nevada border has been heavily contested for decades. And when California and Nevada started implementing their GIS program, that created even more conflict with the exact location of the California-Nevada border and how that affected nearby homes, which is very close to this. And I just wanted to show you all, this is a map of the GIS from Washoe County itself. And these orange arrows are all pointing out things, instances that appear on the GIS system of property line encroachments, variance encroachments. You know, you can see a couple of them where houses are actually built into their neighbors' properties and instances like that. So to go more into the site conditions, here's an image of our site plan from 2020. And as I mentioned, we do have another site plan from 1993 that I'll reference. So to outline exactly where the home is, that's that blue outline there. On the left-hand side is the 2021, on the right-hand side is the 1993 survey, and we can actually see that that home is a little bit bigger because they had this enclosed storage area that appears to have been removed. But for simplicity, we'll go based on the 2020 survey, which is this one. Further, this yellow area here is the Washoe County right-of-way, and something I wanted to mention to you all is that this includes the Washoe County quitclaim deed. You can see it up here in the corner. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's that second little bubble. That was in 1981. I will come back to that, but that is an important thing to note there in the Washoe County right-of-way area. Thirdly, this orange outline is the actual drivable area. Say you're driving down Pahut, whether you're a UPS delivery man or just a visitor to the neighborhood, this is really what you have to be able to turn around. It's very small. This white line shows the turnaround radius. It's kind of just about 20 or 21 feet. It's extremely small. It's not ideal at all. So this is a problem. This is a huge problem. We have a house built into the right-of-way. There's minimal turnaround capability. We want to fix this problem. We have a proposed solution that is the abandonment of this highlighted area that you see on the right of the Washoe County right-of-way, as proposed by Julie just a minute ago. This area is proposed based on meetings with TRPA, Washoe County staff members, fire department, et cetera, and what would work for everybody. And further, we would like to coordinate with agencies and neighbors to actually enhance the turnaround capabilities in this area, because currently it's really not ideal. I mentioned a couple times the quitclaim deed, that kind of second little bubble. And what I wanted to dive into this a little bit about is that, as I mentioned, in 1981, we have a quitclaim deed listed in Washoe County where they acquired this amount of land from the state of Nevada, which is this parcel down on the downslope right there. And the reason this is significant is because the fact that Washoe County acquired this land in 1981 to expand the turnaround capability of Pahut Road shows that they recognized the fact that the house was built into the right of way and that it was their responsibility to improve the turnaround capabilities of this street. This area also, furthermore, is already heavily graded to provide a better turnaround area, as opposed to us going in and changing everything. Washoe County has already done that. They've regraded this extremely steep area to allow a better turnaround area. The homeowner is happy to participate in the enhancement of paving this area in the process of the abandonment to create a better turnaround area for the entire neighborhood. So you may be asking, well, why abandon this portion of the road instead of just move the house onto a different part of the lot or something? And the reasons are here listed below. First of all, there's 443 square feet of living space and 900 square feet of driveway that are currently built into the right of way. And as we have mentioned a number of times, we have every reason to believe that this was built legally, historically, even in spite of the fact that there are no records, because very few records exist from that time. The abandonment would only include the areas of the current residents. As Julie mentioned, we have no interest in abandoning any more of the cul-de-sac. We are only interested in the land that it is currently existing. And the main reason why this is important is because there is currently no mechanism through TRPA for us to transfer that coverage that exists in the right-of-way onto the property. And as all of these other members of the community and members of this neighborhood can attest to, it's a great benefit that we can use the existing coverage of a house and use that to build something newer and better for our clients. But because TRPA does not have any opportunity for us to do this, this is the best, most established way to go forward with this. And even if TRPA did have a mechanism to transfer this coverage from off-site onto the site, it would be much more disruptive to the neighborhood to do something like that. You know, we talk about what kind of detriment we can create to our neighbors, and we want to avoid those things. But we can all agree that if we were to relocate a 2,000 square foot or so house further onto a lot, which is about 28% slope, so it's very steep, that would require an extremely large amount of grading, slope stabilization. You're going to get excavators and dump trucks backing out of that one-lane road. It's not ideal. That certainly would not be a benefit to the rest of the community to encourage a process such as that. So as I mentioned, the abandonment is a well-established legal and precedented procedure in such cases. And I'm aware that members of the commission received a letter from a neighbor calling the abandonment request misleading, meritless, unconstitutional, baseless, etc. And I hope to show you that we are absolutely not intending to mislead anyone. We're well-researched. We're just following the typical procedure for instances such as this. To speak more about compliance, we're absolutely more than happy to comply with all conditions set forth by TRPA regarding the process of the abandonment. We have obviously already submitted a Washoe County abandonment application. We are happy to comply with all of the conditions set forth by the agencies in the staff report, with the addition that we would like to contribute to the enhancement of the turnaround. The homeowner is a professional in the industry of concrete and whatnot. And, you know, in the construction process, we would be happy to improve the situation at the end of Pahut Road. The proposed construction here, as we have, you know, gone through the exact circumstances of this site, we really don't know how we'll be able to design based on the house, based on what our outcome is of this abandonment. However, we do have an idea of what the homeowner would like. We propose to build a new single-family residence of a similar footprint and area in the same footprint area. We just, our client desires a larger and more functional home to be able to enjoy the Lake Tahoe area with his family. He has some young grandchildren. Furthermore, we would like to create a more contemporary design akin to the neighboring homes. There are several homes just down the street that they're large. They have these big, beautiful windows that look out at the lake. And we feel that if we can contribute a larger house that is more similar to the style of the rest of the homes in the neighborhood, it can increase neighborhood value. So in summary, this is a difficult site with extraordinary conditions, and several hundred square feet of residence exists within the Washoe County right-of-way. We have minimal records, but we know it was built in 1941 and it's largely intact and largely original. Evidence in 1981 suggests that Washoe recognized the conflict and acquired land to mitigate this conflict on their own dime. We propose an abandonment of the area of the right-of-way only in which 425 Pahut already exists, and we're happy to abide by any conditions set forth by TRPA and Washoe County staff summary. We propose a new single-family residence that is more functional and adds value to the neighborhood. We would like to minimize neighborhood detriment by building in the existing footprint and not disrupting the site any further, and to add to the neighborhood by enhancing the existing turnaround. Lastly, I just wanted to quickly address a letter that you received from a neighbor. And I just wanted to confirm that there were a couple items, a statement that says that it was false that there are any neighboring homes that encroach into the variance. But I just wanted to confirm that this is true based on a significant amount of research. Several of these homes in the area, including 480 Tuscarora, 380 Tuscarora, 344, et cetera, where the house was already built into the front setback, and then a variance was applied for after the fact to make any modifications or additions. But there are certainly many, many homes in the area that have a similar condition. And they have gone through a similar process as we are right now to deal with their similar situation. At the end of the day, it's a very steep neighborhood with some historic homes, and we all are just placing the homes where they can best make sense for the neighborhood and the community and the environment. I just wanted to say thank you for hearing my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Before I go to public comment, do any of the commissioners have any questions of the applicant or the staff?
Chair Chesney.
And we'll get back here again, too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sevilla.
Yes, I do have questions for staff.
Julie?
Yes, can I help you? This is
Yes.
Julie Olander.
Hi, Julie. So in your presentation, you said that many of the homes are non-conforming. Are they considered legal non-conforming homes?
Yes, they're legally established, just like this house is, so they're legal. However, the challenge that some of them have, there's a neighboring one that is possibly built over the property line into the Nevada state property. There's several that are on Paiute that are very close to the street. So, and they could have, some of them could have variances, but they aren't 20 feet back like the setbacks require.
So with, this isn't going to create a cascading effect, is it, that we're going to have more and more of these before us?
It's hard to say. There's like, it's hard to say up there. It's a challenging neighborhood. If you ever drive up there, I hadn't really been up there before. The streets are very narrow.
Yes, they
the
are.
houses were built fairly haphazardly, I think, or they made sense at the time. The property, it was probably where the flattest piece of the property was flattest. So I can't say that they won't. I don't think any of them are quite in the same situation where they're built into the public right-of-way to the extent that this one is. And there aren't any other ones that I can think of right now that are, there aren't any other cul-de-sacs. The other roads, the other streets up there, you can drive them down and they connect up with State Route 28.
Okay. So my last question is, what's before us tonight is an abandonment, not an approval of a new dwelling?
Correct. And as I
Thank you.
pointed out in my presentation, if the property owner wants to move forward and they're going to build more than 10%, they need to meet that front setback of 20 feet, or they have to apply for a variance, or they can't expand any more than 10%.
Thank you.
Chair Chesney,
Yes,
I have a question of staff.
sure. Kate Nelson,
Julie,
Commissioner Nelson.
for that, new additions of 10%, it looks like their plan is to tear down and build new. So if they keep the same amount of square foot coverage, does that mean that they'll still qualify to keep that 2-foot setback? Or because they are completely demolishing the existing structure and planning a new construction, would then they have to be in conformance with the new setbacks?
My understanding is they have to meet that. If that footprint that they have currently is expanded more than 10%, then they can't move forward without meeting that 20-foot setback. My sense is what they'll do is they'll come in and apply for a variance. Now that would go before the Board of Adjustment, and there's no guarantee that that will be approved. The Board of Adjustment has approved variances in the past for properties like this and other ones that are constrained because of slope and various issues they have, but it's hard to say. So they're going to have to make a decision of how they want to move forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I need to make a comment. This is Nate Edwards.
Yes.
Thank you. Two things real quick. These are good questions. This is a really complicated set of circumstances, both from the building standpoint and from the neighborhood issues standpoint and the legal standpoint, as well as the historical track record on some of these properties. But I want to make a couple points clear for the Planning Commission tonight. One is you are not deciding tonight whether or not this house is or is not legal, non-conforming, or was not built legally at the time that it was constructed in its current form. That's not something you're deciding tonight. You're not deciding whether or not the other properties in the area are or are not legal, non-conforming, or were constructed legally when they were built. You're deciding tonight whether the abandonment that's requested would be a material adverse impact to the public, whether it complies with the master plan, and whether any easements or access points that are necessary that would be covered by the abandonment are preserved or relocated somewhere else. Those are the things you're deciding tonight. I've heard a few references to things like variance type concepts, like hardship and difficulty with constructing and the shape of the things like that refer to like the shape of the lot or the slopes or those kinds of things. Those are variance items. Whether or not there's an exceptional hardship, those are not abandonment items. And I just want to remind you that that is what you're focusing on tonight. And then lastly, whether they do or do not decide to try and rebuild in the future, they've indicated that is their intent. That's also not something you're deciding tonight. The dimensions of their building footprint that would be permissible if they did decide they wanted to come in and apply for a building permit, or if they wanted to ask for a variance, those issues are not being decided tonight. You're not figuring out all those dimensions and all those types of things. You're not going to figure out what the future building footprint is for a future home. That's all stuff for the future. And I guess I'll kind of caution you to, try to avoid, stating conclusions or things like that about some future construction project. What you're looking at is master plan, material injury to the public, and existing access, rights of access. That's it. Thank you.
So on that note, Council Edwards, I think I understood that the county acquired the right-of-way like in 1981, something like that. Was that done through eminent domain, or the county just decided, hey, we're going to draw on the map here and we don't care whether the house is there or not? Somehow it doesn't, when this thing was built 80 years ago, and then all of a sudden the county comes along and says, hey, here's a right-of-way. How does that all work? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
makes sense.
If I can answer that, I'll answer that as best I can. And I'll refer you back to the first thing I said, which is this is a really complicated, historical set of facts. And we probably will never know the full answers, or at least the black and white answers, on some of the historical aspects of this. The applicant's representative mentioned, there's a dearth of records that is to be expected when the passage of time becomes so great that, the people that were around at the time and the people that did those approvals and did the inspections and all that type of stuff are not around anymore. A lot of those records are either lost or difficult to find, or those types of things. I'm speaking generally, not right now, not particularly with respect to this project, but I think those kinds of things are true in this scenario. So we may never know the answer to that. And that's why I think it's important to just focus on the three findings that are in the development code about an abandonment, rather than trying to chase down some of these historical, the answers to some of these historical questions, because I think you're going to find that you're going to have a tough time doing that. What we have right now is a property that has certain boundaries. We have a house that's existing and a driveway that's existing. They are shown to encroach into the right-of-way that is the county's, and they're asking for the county to abandon that portion of the right-of-way. And I think if you think of it in those terms, it's much simpler than going down some of those other paths.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. I appreciate that input. Okay, now I'm going to open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes. One moment, I'm waiting for something to take over here. I just had the view freeze up, so let me see. Some old slow computers.
Mr. Chair, this is Nate Edwards again. Is someone speaking? I can't hear anything right now.
Nobody's saying anything. We're trying to connect to the.
Technical difficulties, Nate.
Okay, just
Yeah,
making sure.
Just some computer issues.
Okay.
I basically have a white screen with a revolving circle. So as the host, there's nothing I can do at this moment to enable anybody to speak.
This is Julie Olander, with Planning and Building. I know that there were some people that were going to call in, so I do feel like this is an awkward situation because I had at least one phone call this afternoon that indicated she was going to call.
I am aware of one hand raised for public comment, but again, the computer I'm using to host Zoom has frozen up, and I've never had this happen before, so I'm not sure about the timing on it.
Katie, can we, and Mr. Chair as well, maybe we could do like a 5-minute recess and see if it's possible.
Sure, we could do
Actually,
that.
Nate, I think we're good. Hold on.
Is it back? Is it
It's
alive again?
It's better than it was. All right, let's give this a try. I have I apologize for my pronunciation, a Linda Greifenstein or Greifenstein with a hand raised. I'm going to give her permission to speak.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Fred Greifenstein. My wife, Linda, is right next to us. We live at 425 Paiute, so we are the Pahut. So we are the nearest neighbor actually on the street. We oppose the request. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank Julie for the excellent work that she did. The original abandoned request had numerous ambiguities in it, and she's turned it into something concrete that you can vote on, whereas the original proposal was not. And she's tried, I believe, to do the best possible to mitigate the damages to the neighbors, though full mitigation is not possible. I'd like to thank Phil Gillen Farr, who is the architect with whom we've spoken on numerous occasions, and he's been extremely collaborative. First of all, I'd like to raise the issue of what public benefit, public interest is being served by abandoning this property to an owner. Now, I realize that Mr. Callier did not construct the abusive structure, but the fact is that it is abusive, and he knew that when he bought it. He's planning on tearing down the house, so this is a perfect opportunity for the commission to establish its rights to the county right-of-way and have him build whatever house he wants on the land that he actually owns. I have no problem with him building his dream house on that property. If this is approved, it rewards illegal expansion onto public land. It encourages other such behavior and would likely generate extremely negative publicity along the line of land grab or free land in Crystal Bay. There are safety issues. Originally, the application was for an additional 20 feet. Then it was cut back to 5 feet. And I see that Julie has cut it back down to 2 feet. I've talked to the FedEx drivers up here who have 23-foot trucks and already have significant difficulty turning around. In particular, today, the driver managed to hit the house while he was turning around. I asked Triple T Trucking from Sparks, who's the FedEx contractor, whether they could turn around with 5 feet additional being taken away, and their answer was a flat no. The The turnaround is even further narrowed during the winter when snow piles up along the side of the house and along the area which Washoe County got in their abandonment request from the state. This will impact emergency vehicles like fire trucks and ambulances as well. I already have a hard time turning around my standard long bed pickup. I can imagine what it would be like to turn around a fire engine. It's not true that that part of the road only serves the 425. It serves numerous delivery vehicles, as well as myself and Mr. Elgohary, who is my next door neighbor. The expansion.
Sir, you're going to have to wrap it up. Your time, I've given you
okay.
more time than you were allowed.
Okay, sorry, but part of that time.
So
was
what's the
taken-
bottom line?
Bottom line, we oppose it. He's got alternatives. He should build on the land that he owns.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further public comment?
Yes, next is Daniel Kotnik.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm a homeowner on Washoe, and so from a kind of a personal interest perspective, I guess I've got less specific interest in the road on Pahut, and maybe that's really the conversation, the decision that's in front of people today. My concern more is with the tear down of the home and the additional construction vehicles and the disruption that would cause in the community. And then also from the perspective of, does that result in a much higher profile home build that would potentially, obstruct the beautiful views that certain homes currently enjoy of the lake. So that was just kind of the concern, that I have. But frankly, I don't know if that has any bearing on the decision that's in front of the group today. And one other, I guess, question is the presentation that Ms. Oleander and Williams presented. Am I correct that kind of just becomes part of the public record and is accessible at some point after tonight's meeting?
I post those presentations on the website, the Planning Commission portion, within 24 hours of the meeting.
Okay, great. All right, well, those were my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment?
Yes, next is Victor Elgohary.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you for taking my comments. I wrote a 5-page detailed legal brief on the issues that are before you. Rather than go through those again, I trust that you will read those in your leisure. But I would like to make a few comments based on the comments that have been made. First, the applicant. A couple of points. As they've indicated, the main issue here is coverage, as I discussed in detail in my brief. But I strongly disagree, being a homeowner and attorney that has read the TRPA ordinances. There are plenty of opportunities and ways in which we can narrow this down to move that home onto the lot. There is absolutely no reason under the TRPA that they can just flatly deny what the applicant is actually trying to do long term. As for the grading and the issues surrounding that, you as a real estate developer and someone that's fairly familiar with this stuff, yes, the grading is disruptive. I would put it at 1 to 2 months tops, running in and out of the street between May and October to try to get a proper grading on the lot that exists. So yes, it would be inconvenient, but not for that long. Yes, there are several non-conforming homes that are built outside the setbacks, but I believe each of them now has a variance. I don't think you're going to find anyone that is built into the right-of-way on Pahoot that I'm aware of. Mr. Gillenfarb did point out that there's a garage being built on Washoe, which is right at the entrance of Pahoot, and wouldn't you know it, that that particular owner actually owns half of Washoe, according to the most recent survey. So that leads me to one of the questions from the commissioners, who ask, is this going to have a cascading effect? And the answer is, you bet. I promise you, this is going to continue to happen because of what's happened, and the way to deal with this. And here's where I'm going to disagree with Mr. Edwards on council. Yeah, it's hard, but I can assure you, as a practicing attorney, anybody that knows what they're doing can run a proper title search and figure out who has a superior property right and what happened. Yeah, it's going to take some time. Yeah, it's going to take some effort. But as I pointed out in my letter, having now lived here almost a year and have tried to make several deliveries of large freight in order to rehabilitate this home, I can tell you.
Sir, your time is up. You're going to have to wrap it up.
All right, I'm just going to tell you that there is a severe public interest and a problem by continuing to narrow this road, because we're going to be denied basic services on this road if that continues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment?
Yes, johnclymer.
Mr. Clymer, you've got 3 minutes.
This is johnclymer. I just want to make sure that the points that have been made are, I guess, emphasized a little more. I read comments about fire engines wouldn't be able to come on Paiute, but that's okay because they could get fire service from the road above Washoe. And I was very concerned that my neighbors would feel that way, especially with the steepness of the slope. If there's a need for a ladder truck, there are people that live across the street from me that have, a very high point that would require something like that. And I just wanted to make sure that those points were really considered. I've watched the big trucks try to turn around. I had to get out with one of Victor's deliveries and actually help the man navigate the end of the road. And it is really in need of expansion further down the road. I think there was also a great concern about snow removal on this very narrow road and making sure we didn't do anything to compromise the dumping of the snow down the hillside that typically takes place and the berm that would result if we don't. So I want to make sure those things are considered. I read things like the other people on the street have little interest in the turnaround, and the fire trucks could use other roads and those kind of things. And I thought those were irresponsible comments. So I wanted to make that comment publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
No further public comment.
Any written public comment?
No further public.
Okay. Then I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the commission for any final questions of staff or the applicant. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the commissioners? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
Chair Chesney.
Commissioner Savilicek.
Yes, thank you. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve with the conditions included in Exhibit A to this matter, abandonment case number WA B20-0003 for Kurt D. Collier Living Trust, having made all three findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.806.20, and having made all three findings.
Commissioner Donchik seconds that motion.
Donchak, was that you? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Svilicek, a second by Commissioner Donchik. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we have one denial. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to special use permit case number WSUP 20-0013, Ormat Geothermal. Mr. Lloyd, could you give us a description of the...
Sure. As for possible action, hearing, and discussion to approve a special use permit for the establishment of an energy production renewable use type, including two 24-megawatt geothermal power plants. 2, the establishment of a hazardous materials use in the form of 720,000 pounds of flammable pentane gas for use as a turbine working fluid. 3, major grading for 194.9 acres of ground disturbance, including 300,000 cubic yards of excavation for well pads and access roads, and 4, a 120 kV power transmission line that extends 21.6 miles over 20 parcels. The application also requests to vary landscaping, parking, and grading standards by waiving all landscaping requirements, waiving the paved parking requirement, and allowing grading height differentials of greater than 10 feet from natural grade. The project meets the standard for a project of regional significance because it will generate more than 5 megawatts of electricity, require construction of 2 substations, and require the construction of a new transmission line, and will require approval by the regional planning authorities before any approvals of the county level would take effect. The 2 substations will be located on APNs 071-07013 and 071-03006. The project also requires recommendation to amend the regional utility corridor map from the from the Board of County Commissioners. This project will also need to comply with all federal and state approvals before any approval at the county level would take effect. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Dan Kalan.
Dan Kalan for the record. I have before you WSUP 20
Dan, I'm sorry, can I stop you for a second?
Excuse me, Dan, just a second. Do we have any disclosures by any of the commissioners?
Chair-
Ethics or ex parte?
Right here.
Chair Chesney, this is Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
I have a disclosure to make. The company I work for, JP Engineering, does work for Ormat. We currently are working with them on a separate project. We are not involved in this project, but like I said, they are a current client of ours.
Okay, Council Edwards, would you like to perform your magic on?
Sure. What is your role in the company that you work for? If you could describe that for the record in kind of general terms.
So I'm a civil engineer and I'm a project manager with JP Engineering.
Okay. So you have a fairly significant role in things like project development and client relationships and things like that?
Correct.
Okay. And is that's your main source of income? Is that job, that's your career, your full-time career?
That's correct.
Okay. And you said that your firm does work for Ormat. Are there any other projects? I think you mentioned 2 projects, this one and one other. Are there others as well? Is it kind of an ongoing relationship between the firm you work for and Ormat?
Yeah, we've worked for them for probably the last 10 plus years. So.
Okay. So I have my opinion based on what you've told me. If you want my recommendation, I'll give that to you. If not, I'll just leave the decision to you about whether a reasonable person would be able to remain impartial despite, these relationships. Would you like my opinion, or do you want to just make the decision yourself?
I'm going to make the decision to recuse myself.
Okay, well, just to spoil what my opinion would have been, I would have agreed with you. So I think that's a sound decision. I'm going to recommend that you excuse yourself from the dais during the hearing of this item, and then you can come back into the meeting area, into the chambers when the item is done.
She's attending through Zoom, Nate.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the chambers right now, and you all look very small on my screen. Okay, then what I would recommend then is that you disconnect your Zoom connection, and then we have, I believe, Ms. Stark can text you or call you as soon as the item's done so you can rejoin the meeting. Is that workable?
That is workable.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes, Pat Phillips. Some years ago, I was an observer on the negotiations that were made for the establishment of the Ormat geothermal plant at Galena. I have no financial interest in it. It was just that I was present at the negotiations.
Can you, and this is Nate Edwards again, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that? You said you were an observer.
I worked for a member of Congress at that time, and being that he was not present, I would sit in on the meetings to observe and report back.
Okay. So that was your primary role, was to observe what was going on and report back to your congressperson's
Yes,
office?
that's correct.
Okay. How many years ago was that?
Oh, 20 plus years.
Okay. And that was a different facility?
It was the one that was at Galena.
Okay. And so not, in what I'm getting at
It's
is
not this one, but it was the company.
Okay, same company. Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'll give you the same option. If you would like my opinion, I will happily give that to you. My legal opinion about whether that disclosure requires you to recuse yourself or not. And if you want to just make the decision yourself, you can do that as well. The decision you're making is whether a reasonable person would be able to be impartial despite that connection in the past with that congressperson.
That's the way I feel. Thank you.
Okay, is that you feel like you can be impartial?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay. And that sounds like a reasonable decision to me in this situation. So, thank you for the disclosure.
Great. Any further disclosures? Seeing none, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Can we have Dan, your staff presentation, please?
Dan Collins for the record, WSUP 20-0013 for Ormat Geothermal. I'm going to try and keep this one as short as I can. So just to review what Trevor said at the intro of this, the applicant is requesting to establish a 48 megawatt geothermal facility across 189.9 acres. This is taking the form of two 24 megawatt geothermal plants. The applicant is also requesting to establish a hazardous material use for 720,000 pounds of flammable pentane gas. There's also a major grading permit and a request to construct a 120 kilovolt power transmission line, as well as requests to vary the parking, landscaping, and grading standards. This project does meet the standard for a project of regional significance. So I've provided a vicinity map. This project is split up into two areas. The northern area is the area that deals with the wells and the geothermal power facility. And the southern area is the transmission line that connects it to the grid further down the line. So background, there are 30 affected parcels on this application, all of which are zoned general rural. 8 of these parcels are for the well pads. 2 of these parcels are for the geothermal power facilities, and 20 parcels are for the transmission line. The applicant is currently operating the existing San Emidio geothermal facility in the vicinity, and these plants are going to be air-cooled geothermal power generating facilities, which use the pentane gas as a turbine working fluid. To explain this, this is a diagram provided by the applicant in their application. So what happens is the geothermal is pumped up from underground. It comes into the plants. It vaporizes the pentane gas, which then turns the turbine and then moves through the condenser, which is fan blown, comes back through. This pentane is then heated with the leftover heat from the original vaporization, which preheats it for vaporization, while also cooling the geothermal brine to be pumped back into the ground. None of the geothermal water connects with the pentane gas whatsoever. They're completely separate processes. It's just heat exchange between one and the other. Here's the site plan for the geothermal area. The areas that are in green, which if you can follow my mouse, are the proposed pipelines, and the area in the light blue is the proposed transmission line. This is a little bit clearer here. So what I have here are pictures of geothermal piping, as well as a geothermal well of the existing facility. The geothermal well is outlined in the red. So here are the proposed well locations. All the red squares are all 25 of the proposed well pads, and the two green rectangles are the areas for the two geothermal power generating facilities. And here's a layout of the geothermal power stations. We have the power station itself up at the top. We have fuel tanks. We have the substation, which takes the electricity and brings it onto the grid. And we have pentane storage for the pentane, so that the applicant can store the pentane while making repairs to the facility. So now we're going to move on to the analysis within the code. So I'm going to start with uses. There are 3 proposed uses in this application. The first 2, energy production, renewable, and utility services, are both permissible with an approved SUP in general rural zoning. However, the third, aggregate facilities, is permissible with a special use permit. However, there is no special use permit that is included for this use type, as this meets the threshold for a temporary aggregate facility. This will require a future SUP and will be dealt with at a later date. Moving on to the geothermal aspects, the applicant is requesting to approve 25 wells. Just a heads up, all of the future test wells will require an admin permit. This is not approving the test wells. This is just approving the power generation and wells after the test wells. There are also requirements to not use toxic materials in the drilling fluid, as well as reclamation for well fields. Therefore, staff is recommending that the applicant provide a list of drilling chemicals prior to issuance of building permits, as well as a requirement for financial assurance for 80% of wellhead reclamation. Moving on to building placement standards, the general rural setbacks are 30 feet from the front and rear, as well as 50 feet from the side, with a maximum height of 35 feet. Proposed facility meets the setback and height requirements, as well as the fencing requirements, as the proposed fences are 8 feet or less in height for an industrial use. Parking and loading, there are 3 required parking spaces, 2 for the full-time employees that will be employed at these facilities, and then there is a requirement of 1 handicap space. The applicant is requesting to waive the parking standards for pavement. Staff agrees with this for the non-ADA required parking spaces, and that is a proposed condition in Exhibit A. Moving on to Article 4.12, landscaping. The applicant is requesting to waive all formal landscaping requirements. Staff agrees to waive this formal landscaping requirement and has proposed that within the conditions in Exhibit A, mostly because formal landscaping would be very out of place in this high desert environment, which is taken from the site in this photo here. Article 4.14, dealing with lighting and noise. The application shows that the facility will meet dark sky standards and it will meet noise standards. So there are no concerns here from staff's perspective. Moving on to grading. This application does require a major grading permit, as there are 300,000 cubic yards of excavation across 194.9 acres of disturbed area. Each well site will require 4.2 acres of disturbance per pad initially, which will then be reduced down to 2.5 acres of disturbance after completion. And the applicant is requesting to waive the 10-foot maximum finished slope from natural grade. Staff agrees to vary this standard as it may minimize overall grading due to the fact that geothermal facilities and resources vary depending on the aquifer and geological conditions. So if they're able to cut in one area, it may minimize the number of wells required overall. There are only 3 wellheads that actually have cuts that exceed more than 10 feet. These are all the areas that are highlighted in the orange. And in order to make this helpful, staff has proposed conditions in order to vary natural slopes, but the applicant is required to meet the creation of terraces for these slopes. These need to be revegetated with a minimum of 6 feet in width for each terrace. They need to be a maximum vertical height of 10 feet. And then the terrace widths need to be at least 60% of the height of the higher of the 2 adjacent retaining walls, as well as bench widths being 4 feet. Moving on to Article 810, special use permits. This permit actually triggers a number of special caveats to a normal special use permit. First, it's a natural resources SUP, so therefore there are 3 additional findings that are required to be made, as well as a hazardous materials SUP. This requires additional notice of 1,000 feet from the site, as opposed to the 500 feet from a normal SUP, as well as 30 days notice prior to any public hearing, as well as providing the application to the following agencies for comment: Washoe County Director of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, NDEP, the Nevada State Fire Marshal, and the Division of Industrial Relations at the Nevada State Department of Business and Industry. These agencies provided comments and conditions related to the storage of pentane. Most specifically, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District provided the most comments on the storage of pentane, which is the hazardous material in this application. This application was sent to 27 reviewing agencies, 12 of which provided comments to staff, as this is a very complicated endeavor. I want to point out that this was sent to both the BLM's state office and Winnemucca offices, as this project is going through an environmental assessment because it is crossing over into federal lands. This environmental assessment was not completed at the time of review, though there was a draft environmental assessment available. However, Washoe County is evaluating this project strictly on what we regulate, which are use, hazardous materials, grading, and the project of regional significance. We're going to let the feds deal with the draft environmental assessment. Notice for this project was sent to 37 property owners, which are those property owners in the light blue on the map on the right-hand side, within approximately 4 miles of the site, which is the area that is highlighted in yellow. This was also sent to the Citizens Advisory Boards. Since this crosses both into the High Desert and East Truckee Canyon Citizens Advisory Board areas, it was scheduled to go to meetings. However, there were no meetings scheduled, so worksheets were provided. Staff received 1 worksheet from the CABs, and they brought up the following concerns, including the proximity to fire stations, issues regarding the borrow pit, which we've addressed will require a special use permit in the future, wear and tear on Rodeo Creek, as well as water table concerns. Staff also received late public comment against the proposed facility. You should have received a packet on the dais with all of these late public comments, which arrived after I was able to publish my staff report with internal deadlines. These brought up impacts regarding neighboring geothermal resources, impacts on fault lines, and impacts on mineral deposits. These issues are covered under the draft environmental assessment, as well as Washoe County Engineering did review the application and did not provide any comments regarding fault lines at all. The applicant did provide feedback to the CAB questions. The facility will provide on-site fire suppression, and ORMAT will be completing a road maintenance agreement with the county in order to mitigate the impacts on the roads. There will be no additional water resources used in this facility, And ORMAT is working with the Bureau of Land Management in order to create a aquifer monitoring plan. And ORMAT is still going to go through all the permits that are required for the losses of pentane through NDEP, as well as Washoe County Air Quality Management. Therefore, staff is able to make all 5 of the normal findings for a special use permit, as well as the 3 additional SUP findings for a natural resource development SUP, and therefore recommends that the Planning Commission approve this special use permit with the recommended conditions of approval. And I have provided a motion for your convenience, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have an applicant presentation?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for the record, Andy Derling with Wood Rogers. Give me a second just to share my screen. Let me know if you can see that. Okay, it looks like it.
We can see it fine, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. On behalf of ORMAT, we appreciate your time this evening. Also appreciate Dan and the team at Washoe County on staff for their work in getting us to this point. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of ORMAT. ORMAT has been in business for many decades here in Nevada, calling Nevada their corporate headquarters. They are an international company building geothermal power facilities across the globe. They have over $3.68 billion in market cap and are currently operating over 914 megawatts worth of geothermal power plants here throughout the globe, including right here in the Truckee Meadows, as was mentioned earlier, a large facility on the south side of town near the Galena High School. As Dan mentioned, a lot of this is going to be a little bit repetitive, so I'll go quickly through some of these. This is broken into 2 project areas, the north, which is the main kind of bulk of the development area with the power plant and the well fields, and then the southern portion that has the transmission line. This area is located about 6 miles southwest of State Highway 447 off the road. And as Dan mentioned, it's adjacent to the existing San Imadito geothermal facility that's been operating for many, many years. Special use permit for renewable energy production, as well as development of natural resources. The hazardous material, which is specific to the pentane gas, which is used as the motive fluid to vaporize and run the turbine generators to create the power. There's major grading associated with the roads and well pads and the plant facility itself. And this is a project of regional significance for a number of reasons. One, that it generates more than 5 megawatts of power, the 2 substations that are proposed, as well as constructing the new 120 kV transmission line in an existing utility corridor. The existing disturbances, the grading, some of the disturbances are temporary and will ultimately be quite a bit less. The well pads and pipelines in particular, just the means by which they have to construct those facilities require a little bit larger disturbance. Ultimately, those temporary disturbances are reclaimed after construction, and the permanent disturbance is just under 130 acres over our facility. The northern portion consists of 2 24-megawatt binary design geothermal energy facilities. Specifically on each of those, there's a half-acre substation. There's also geothermal production, injection wells and well pads, access roads, the geothermal fluid pipelines, as well as some ancillary support facilities, offices, things like that, and the overhead transmission line. The southern portion, as I mentioned, is limited just to the overhead transmission line. It's within an existing energy corridor. It's called the 368 energy corridor, is established by the Department of Homeland Security several years ago. There's existing facilities in that corridor already. As Dan mentioned, this is kind of the diagram of how geothermal works. I won't go over it again, but it does, just wanted to hit on the fact that, again, right, this is a closed loop system, meaning the geothermal fluid never comes in contact with the pentane gas. It's just adjacent to it in the pipes. And so the heat from that is used to heat the pentane gas and vaporize it in order to turn the generator. That system, that geothermal system or the geothermal fluid is never really, exposed to the air or anything like that. It's within a closed loop and is brought out of the ground, heats the motive fluid, and then it's put right back down into the ground to reheat and be used again. The vapor of the pentane gas is also in a closed system. It's reused over and over again, vaporized, cooled by those fans and the condensers, and then goes back through the system to preheat and then vaporize again. The pentane gas is not is flammable, but not toxic. It requires advanced permitting through both the state and the county. As Dan mentioned, we'll have over 720,000 pounds of pentane in the system at any given time. He mentioned the tanks that are on the site. The tanks are only utilized when the pentane is pumped out of the system in order to maintain, the pipes and valves and things like that, and then is pumped back into the system when the whole plant is powered back up again. No disposal of pentane will take place on site. It's all in a clean, sealed, closed loop system. A chemical accident prevention program, or a CAP permit, and a Class 2 operating permit is also required through NDEP. And the applicant, having managed and operated a number of these facilities across Nevada and as well in Washoe County here, is very seasoned in the protocols and has a stellar safety record. The buildings or the vertical structures on the site really are those 35-foot tall condensers. That's kind of the most obvious thing that you'll see. There's a half-acre substation transformer, which converts from the DC to AC energy in order to transmit it. 8-foot chain link fence with no slats, and barbed wire will be around the entire perimeter of each plant. Lighting will be minimal, and it'll have motion controls on it and directed downward and shielded to meet dark skies requirements. And as I mentioned earlier, there'll be some ancillary facilities like offices, restrooms, electrical rooms, things like that, located inside the fenced power plant as well. Additionally, there's 2 500-gallon above-ground storage tanks with diesel fuel to power backup generators as well as to fuel on-site equipment. Additional details, all the structures will be under 35 feet. Lighting is compliant with the dark skies requirements. We have 3 parking spaces that are all proposed to be decomposed granite for employees, which, as Dan mentioned, the parking waiver that we had requested. No formal landscaping is planned to maintain the natural appearance out here, as disturbed areas will be revegetated with a native seed mix. And then well drilling, just to give you an idea of kind of schedule of this, well drilling is anticipated to start later this year, with construction of the power facility anticipated to start next year. There'll be up to 25 production or injection wells or pads with the wells throughout this facility. The EA process identified 25 total wells. It's really unlikely that all 25 will be used, and the exact locations will vary slightly as they begin testing the underground geothermal aquifer and determining where best to have production wells and injection wells. Based on the environmental assessment with the BLM and the preliminary well pad locations, we're looking at about 7.5 miles of production injection pipelines that will be above ground. Those are typically about 30 inches in diameter, as were shown in the pictures in Dan's slides. The pipelines and wellheads will be painted desert colors in accordance with the BLM EA in order to minimize visual impact. The grading associated with the project is about 300,000 cubic yards. That consists of the wells, the pads, the roads, and the plant itself. The grading activities will require cuts and slopes to clear for the new roads and those pads and the facility. Native materials will be used for the site and road building materials as much as possible. And the 3 pad sites are planned in terrain where they will likely exceed the 10-foot maximum cut, which hence the waiver that we have.
Just in closing, this location is identified as an area of geothermal activity. There's already an existing geothermal plant just next door. Adjacent properties are, like I said, are already similar in nature. Majority of the project is relatively flat. No slopes are over 10%. Permit issuance will help Nevada meet its 50% renewable energy production by 2030. There's no public health detriment when this is done properly. And like I said before, ORMAT has a stellar track record in Nevada and especially in Washoe County. This produces clean energy with little greenhouse gas emissions and is has increased safety and monitoring protocols to maintain a safe environment for the workers as well as the surrounding area. That concludes my presentation. We are in agreement with staff's recommendation and the conditions as presented and would be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of staff, or before I go to public comment, are there any questions of staff or the applicant's representative? And we'll revisit this again after public comment.
Chair Chesney, this is Commissioner Donchek.
Yes, Commissioner Donchek.
Yeah, from staff, from Dan, I'd like a clarification on something, if I may.
Sure.
Dan?
Yes?
I see in the packet that you went out to all various organizations, and I see that the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe put a very strong packet together of all their concerns. At what point would their concerns be addressed?
So those would be addressed in the draft environmental assessment. And I believe that those are addressed in table 3.2 of the draft environmental assessment. And there is a link in the staff report under HD policy 7.2, which was a link to the draft environmental assessment. My understanding from my reading of the draft environmental assessment was that the San Emilio geothermal table was separated from the Pyramid Lake water table, so there was not any conflict there. But I don't have it necessarily in front of me, but I believe that was captured in table 3.2.
Okay, I didn't go to the table. I was just reading the document, and I see that both of their technical experts that reported back have conflict with that answer. They believe that's not true.
Give me a moment. I'm searching through the draft environmental assessment for you. Where is it? Table 3.2. Fish habitat. I believe it was fish habitat. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen.
It wasn't basically the fish. They had various concerns about the water drawdowns and how it would impact them.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm just showing you where it is in the draft environmental assessment. Here we go. So it's clearly here under fish habitat, and it's listed several times in this table, 3.2. The hydrological evaluation indicates groundwater systems in the San Emilio Desert and Pyramid Lake Basin are not interconnected. So I'm not a hydrogeologist. I'm using the expertise of those who drafted the draft environmental assessment. But that's what it says, and that's exactly where I see it.
All right, thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
So, Commissioner Donchek, you have any further questions?
No, that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any?
Pat first and then.
Oh, Ms. Phillips, Commissioner Phillips.
Yes, I'd like to ask Dan, was there an archaeological study made of the area?
This is also included in the draft environmental assessment. I believe it is in section 3.2.6, and there is substantial discussion in the draft EA regarding that. And if you give me a moment, I can pull up the conversation. And again, you can find that within the staff report through the link. So give me a moment.
Is there a way of finding out who carried that out also? Who is responsible?
As the authors of the draft environmental assessment, which I believe is section 4. But again, I'm not entirely sure if that's exactly the section, but the authors are in the environmental assessment draft. and there's an inventory of, what was it, 269 archaeological resources, 3 architectural resources. Are there any more questions?
Does that answer your question? Okay. Any,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Safelicek?
Yes. This is for the applicant,
Yes.
and then I may have a further question for staff. I believe I heard you state in your presentation that drilling will start this year and operational by next year. Is that correct?
No, I believe drilling will start this year, construction on the plant start next year, and I believe commercial operation in 2022. Also on the Zoom, Ben Orcutt and Melissa Wendt with ORMAT are also with us. They are more than willing to jump in and answer any of your permitting questions if you would like as well. So I don't know, Ben, if you would like to jump in and maybe give more detail to that.
So I'm still directing questions at you, Andy.
I know, but I as a representative of the applicant, I was just, they're actually on the call as well. So if you would like to hear from ORMAP representatives as well,
Thank you.
they're available. Yep.
So in terms of knowing all the additional, I will call them hurdles, but additional processes that this proposal is going to have to go through, you still believe it's operational by 2022?
Yes, and that's, and again, maybe I'll if I may allow Ben Orcutt to jump in from ORMAT, he can give you specifics on kind of construction time frame as well on this to give you an idea. So Ben, would you mind unmuting?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andy. Hello, members of the commission. This is Ben Orcutt with ORMAT. So how this project will actually be phased is we will go out and drill. By the end of this year, we'll start working on figuring out where our injection wells are going to go. From the previous activity out there and with the existing San Emilio facility, we know our targets for where production will be, where the hottest brine is that we could pull out of the ground. What we're looking for now is excellent injection sites where that brine can migrate back to the hottest part of the rock and reheat for our project. So with that, we anticipate having, up to 3 to 4 wells drilled by the end of this year in the first quarter of next year. And then we would have project release internally within ORMAT, I believe around June, at which point we would start construction on the facility. Now, construction takes about 9 months for the actual power plant. Transmission line, we anticipate it taking, much less time.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Safelicek?
Question for staff. Dan, you keep referring to sections in the staff report and you keep referring to links, but what we have in front of us is your application in paper form and no electronic device in front of us to be able to access those links. So I'm trying very hard to find the environmental assessment that you keep referring to. And so can you provide a little more guidance?
So I believe it's in the area plan policies, HD policy 7.2. There is a link there, as this is normally posted digitally for the public. You can also find it through the BLM website. However, in the interest of trying to save trees, since this is not really our review and not part of the application as it says, we didn't want to add another 200 pages to your packet that's in front of you. So I apologize. Next time I will provide the 200 pages in front of you, so that way you can see it, Commissioner Safelicek.
Thank you, and that refers to Commissioner Donchek's questions as well, as to not being able to see that information directly. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none for right now, we're going to revisit this. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We do. I have a Donna Marie Noel.
Good evening. My name's Donna Marie Noel, and I'm the Natural Resources Director for the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. And I've been intimately active in the geothermal exploration on the Pyramid Lake Reservation for over 10 years, maybe even 15 years. And we're very concerned about this project. We did submit extensive comments to both the BLM and yourselves. We feel that the well field for the production wells are very close to the reservation, and the faulting structures that they're targeting come right off the reservation. So we think that it's going to have a negative impact on our geothermal resources, and perhaps even just take the geothermal resources right out from under the reservation. That area is also, the fault structures are vertical in a lot of areas, and you can see the groundwater and the springs in the lake range that are supporting, the springs are supporting our newly introduced bighorn sheep and other wildlife. And all our exploration in that area has shown vertical movement. So we'll see a depletion in our springs and our fresh water. And although the water isn't going to be used at the project, it's going to get pumped from one side of the valley to the other. And so we also see there are many places in the lake where the geothermal waters go into the lake. And so it might have an impact on some of the fish species in the lake. We have talked to BLM, and they kind of have a conflict of interest because they are in charge of both the tribal geothermal, they have jurisdiction over the tribal geothermal resources as well as the BLM land. So we are totally opposed to this project as it's given in the EA, and we'd like to see you dismiss it and not approve it this evening. And the EA is just a draft, and we have not seen any comments back from them on our comments. And we have experts and people that have worked with us that show that they didn't do enough studying of that system and took old research that was done on the other side of the reservation.
Your time is up, so would you please summarize your position, and we need to move on.
Yes, we are opposed to passing the geothermal special use permit for Ormat.
Thank you. Next public comment?
Pyramid Associates. Just a little technical glitch. It looks like Pyramid Associates is using an older version of Zoom for my pop-up, so I'm going to promote them to panelist in order for them to speak. We'll see how that works. So Pyramid Associates should now be able to enable their microphone.
Okay, this is Mike Albert. I am representing Pyramid Associates, which is a family limited partnership, of which I am a family member. We are opposed to the project because we are directly adjacent to the project. We have 1,084 acres of fee land, which is surrounded in the northern part of the well field. And this well field is the injection wells. We have geothermal resource on our property, along with the mineral resources. And we have had a geological report done, hydrothermal report, by Mr. Hinkle, who is a professional geologist and a professional hydrologist located in Carson City. And his report outlines the probable damage to our geothermal resource that injection wells along our property line would create. We have these injection wells will be as close as 50 feet to our property line. They will be injecting cool geothermal waters, which would migrate into our geothermal resource, cooling our resource, and this is outlined in the geotechnical report. We also have significant mineral resources on the property. My dad purchased this property 60 years ago for its mineral and geothermal resources. Also, the injection wells will be sited over faults that run through our property for over a mile. And in their own report, they outline how putting injection wells on faults would cause seismic disturbance, earthquakes, which could damage our mineral and geothermal resources. Also, there's a 1.25 miles of road that they have as their access road that goes through our property, which is a dirt road, which is unimproved, and which they have no easements or right-of-ways for, yet they're going to use it for their main access. Therefore, because it'll damage our property, and in your findings, you're supposed to deny a project if it damages adjacent property owners' property. So, thank you. We've also submitted a lengthy written testimony and reports and maps.
Okay, sir, your time is up. Can you give us your bottom line on this?
Yeah, we're against the project because it would damage our geothermal mineral resources on our fee land there, which adjoins the projects and actually surrounded by them.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment?
One moment.
I have a letter here from Burning Man Project from Lena Tanner. Have you all received that also? Would you like me to read 3 minutes worth of it? Or?
Yeah, I think we should read it into the minutes.
Okay. Burning Man Project submits these comments in regards to the special use permit permitted by ORNI 36 LLC, ORMAT, for an expanded geothermal plant and related transmission infrastructure to be located in the San Emidio Desert Basin and to include federal geothermal leases within public and private leased land. The project. BMP, Burning Man Project, is generally supportive of the expanded use of renewable energy sources in the resource mix for northern Nevada. However, BMP also believes that adequate and fair planning practices must be implemented in order to avoid unintended consequences of moving forward with a project without the completion of adequate studies to determine the interconnection of the geothermal resources in the area's basins. The concerns stated in BMP's comments today echo the concerns expressed by the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe before the commission before this commission and before the Bureau of Land Management in the NEAP scoping process as to the approval of this project prior to conducting a full environmental impact statement, EIS. BMP is also a landowner in close proximity to the project. As such, the connectivity of the geothermal resources of the San Emidio Desert Basin with those of the basins throughout the region should be addressed prior to approval of the project. The BLM issued a draft environmental assessment dated May 2020. Within the DEA, the BLM notes the preferred alternative to allow the project was the only alternative offered. This is not accurate. Both the tribe and Western Watershed Project advocated for a full EIS before making a recommendation to proceed with the project. The tribe also submitted its own technical memorandum to the BLM indicating evidence of connectivity of the geothermal resources in the neighboring basins, and as such, it is in conflict with the DEA. The DEA does not appear to adequately address these conflicts. The tribe suggests that the BLM require ORMAT to conduct an investigation, including pump tests, hydrological modeling, temperature analysis, among other research to quantify the project's impact, both from the withdrawal and reinjection on the tribe's federal reserved groundwater rights within the San Emidio Basin and within other adjacent areas. This investigation, do you want me to keep going?
Mr. Chair, so it's important that the agenda be adhered to on the comment limits. And the way the county commission's been handling this is if they do read a letter, they'll read it for the 3 minutes, and when that's up, they'll state that the letter is being placed on the record. And then.
Okay, then we'll just enter the letter into the record. All right, any further public comment?
No further public comment.
Seeing no further public comment, I'm going to bring it back to the commission for final questions of staff or the applicant. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And is there any discussion amongst the commissioners of the project or the information? Hearing none, I would call for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Well.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 20-0013 for Orney 36 LLC for the following requests. 1, the establishment of an energy production renewable use type. 2, the establishment of a hazardous materials use. 3, major grading. And 4, request to vary parking, landscaping, and grading standards as recommended in the conditions of approval in Exhibit A, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30 and the additional findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.35, 40, and 42.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Payton. Do we have a second? Then I will second the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Savilicek.
I was going to bring this up at the previous decision, but Council Edwards, I'm posing this to you, but I would suggest a roll call vote because it's so the public can understand where the findings are for each commissioner, and then we know who voted no, who voted yes, if that is the case on this one.
That would be up to the chair. And, you know, the minutes of the meeting do need to reflect who voted and which, or how they voted. And if there's any confusion over that, it's been my experience being counsel for this commission that the chair, in those situations where there could be some confusion, has asked for a roll call. And so I think he can handle that if there is the need for it here.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll call for a roll call vote. Where do we want to start here? Okay,
Well, your staff will call the roll if you'd like.
pardon?
Staff can call the roll call if you would like.
Okay, you want to call the roll call? I'll call it.
Okay, I can do it. Larry Chesney,
Aye.
Francine Donchik,
Nay.
Thomas Bruce. Nay. Sarah Sabilicek,
Nay, I cannot make finding number 4.
Or 6.
did you say or 6 or did Francine?
That was Commissioner Donchek.
Sorry. I forgot. Speaking out of turn, I apologize.
Okay. Kate Nelson,
Oh, she's
She's
recused.
Oh, that's right.
recused.
Larry Payton, oh, you're
Aye.
aye. And Pat Phillips.
Nay.
Okay. Motion,
Okay, now
Is
are we
denied.
saying which findings you cannot meet?
This is Nate.
that would be up to the nays, what
Yeah,
findings.
exactly. If, Mr. Chair, if any of the planning commissioners wanted to make specific comments about particular findings, they could do that. I've
Okay.
heard a couple of them say that, but you don't have to make that statement.
That's
on
what I
the
thought,
record.
okay.
I'm sorry, if I may, Mr. Chair, it may be helpful to provide, you know, at least a little bit of discussion in terms of those findings for the denial. Thanks.
Okay, so
Okay, well, Francine Donchik said nay, so what are the,
For me, it was 4 and 6.
okay. And Thomas Bruce?
I just said nay.
Okay,
what conditions could you not?
he just didn't.
Okay,
Pat Phillips?
I will not disclose at this time.
Okay, thank you.
okay. The motion fails. Seeing that, we'll move, I will close the public hearings and move on to,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
Nate Edwards again. So what you had was a motion to approve. That motion was denied. I think now, if the intent of the commission is to deny the project, I think there should be a motion on that and a second and a vote.
okay, do we have a motion to deny?
I'm Commissioner Donchik. I make a motion to deny.
Okay,
I second.
okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Donchek, a second by Commissioner Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, are you able to state who the ayes and nays are on that motion?
Okay, the nays were Commissioner Payton and Commissioner Chesney, and everybody with the exception of Kate Nelson was an aye.
Thank
We need
you.
to do a
And I
roll
don't
call
think-
vote on that, too?
No, I think you stated it, and I don't think you need to go back through, statement of the findings. I think that's already in the record.
Okay, great. So, that is the end of public hearings. I'm going to go to planning items. Planning item 9A. And that's review and confirm the order of alternates for the Regional Planning Commission.
Commissioner, can we get make sure Kate is back online before we start up?
Pardon?
Can we get Kate back into the meeting?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to text Kate and let her know she can come back.
Then why don't we take, we've been at this for a while, why don't we take a 10-minute recess? Does that work for everybody? And while we get Commissioner
That's
Nelson back
probably
on.
quite a bit longer than they need to get Kate
Yeah,
back on.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. I want to call off the recess, and we're going to come back into session. We have
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Nelson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, sorry, Nate Edwards again. I think since you've announced to the public that you were going to be in recess for 5 minutes, I think you need to wait the
Okay.
3.5 here, just in case anybody got up to go get some water or something. They can get back in time.
Okay, our 5 minutes is up. We're back in session. Commissioner Nelson is back with us. We are at agenda item 9A, to determine and confirm the order of alternates selected to represent the Washoe County Planning Commission on Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission in the event the regularly appointed, I'm doing it for you, appointed members are unavailable to serve. The currently proposed order is as follows. First alternate, Thomas Bruce. Second alternate, Case Nelson. Third alternate, Larry Payton. Fourth alternate, Pat Phillips. If confirmed and or determined, to direct the Planning Commission Secretary to transmit the list of confirmation alternates to the Washoe County Board of Commissioners and to the Executive Director of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission. Agency, excuse me. So, do we need, I think we need a motion on this.
Commissioner Chesney,
Yes.
Commissioner Doncic here, I move to confirm the order of alternates to the Regional Planning Commission as follows. First alternate, Thomas Bruce. Second alternate, Kate Nelson. Third alternate, Larry Payton. Fourth alternate, Pat Phillips. I further move to direct the Planning Commission Secretary to transmit the confirmed list of alternates to the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners and to the Executive Director of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency.
Okay, do we have a second?
Commissioner Trevilichek will second.
Okay, Commissioner motion by Commissioner Doncic, second by Commissioner Civilacek. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, you need to do
Aye.
public comment?
Do we need public comment on this?
Yes. It's a planning item. The agenda says there's public comment on it.
Okay, is there any public comment on this?
No public comment.
Seeing no public comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good enough. Moving on. 10, Chair and Commission items. Do we have any future agenda items? Seeing none. Do we have any requests for information from staff? Seeing none. Move to item 11, Directors and Legal Counsel items, report on previous Planning Commission items. Mr. Lloyd.
No previous items to report on at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, any legal information and updates?
Nothing else for now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Edwards, for your fantastic advice tonight. I appreciate that. Do we have any general public comment and any discussion thereof? Is there any general public comment?
No public comment.
Seeing none, I'll call this meeting adjourned.